Remember, knowledge, it ain't free. You got to pay attention and don't believe the hype.
For over 150 years, the Kentucky Derby has stood as the most enduring tradition in American sports. And in our time, one stallion is reshaping its legacy. Back-to-back Derby winners. His first son at stud siring another. A dynasty in motion. A motion that again has forward momentum toward Louisville, with another elite crop of 3-year-olds bearing his genes. Spendthrift Farm, home of Into Mischief.
Remember, there are reasons that only very few people beat this game. Many reasons for that. One is you have to go against human nature and be willing to cash less tickets to win more money. You can't use everybody and their sister. You can't bet every race. You can't bet every track. You can't go after everything all over the place. You got to manage your money and pick your spots or you will get devoured.
In the Kentucky Derby.
For some, they say it's the most exciting 2 minutes in sports. For us, it's about potential financial opportunities. Never bring a knife to a gunfight, and make no mistake, big money is up for grabs and this is a fight. Never settle for second best. The Past the Wire annual Kentucky Derby seminar. Nobody does it better. Preparation is key. Be better prepared, delve deeper, stealth. They won't see us coming and they won't know we're there. Money management, ticket structure, pace, all the intangibles, thoroughgraph, everything that matters to make it count, to have that edge. In the end, if things go as planned, it'll be like we stole the money. Ciao tutti. Hope everybody's okay. Thank you for tuning in to Past the Wire TV. Glad everybody's here. And what do we got? We got some takeaways from the weekend. We got our Kentucky Derby radar. We got an early look at the Wood Memorial, the Santa Anita Derby, and the Bluegrass. And a little bonus that we're going to start out with. And maybe it's a bonus, maybe it isn't. We'll find out down the road. But it's a little bonus, in my opinion, that may pay off on Saturday. Probably not, but may definitely pay off down the road. And it's a filly that I think has got Kentucky Oaks written all over her. And remember, what we never want to do, ever want to do, under any circumstances, is forget why we're here. That's why we're here. So hopefully, we got a little tidbit here that can pay off before we get to the takeaways and the other races. Saturday at Aqueduct in the Gazelle, Ballerina de Oro is running. Mile and an eighth, full mile and an eighth, around 2 turns, no BS. And I think she's really coming around. I've been high on her since she moved to the dirt. I know she's been okay on the grass, but I've been high on her since she moved to the dirt. And I really think she's sitting on a big race. She had a couple of little setbacks, for sure. We know that. But I think she's really primed for a big race on Saturday. Devonadale wasn't the right kind of setup for her at all. A flat mile at Gulfstream Park, and she still ran credibly. Before that, in her first race on the dirt, Demoiselle, at this very track and distance at Aqueduct, I thought she made a really nice move between horses. First dirt start, took some kickback. I think obviously we don't need to ask him. Chad thinks she's worth a look for the Kentucky Oaks. Obviously, he's got that on his mind, and I've had it on my mind since he took her off the grass in the Jessamine at Keeneland back in October and ran her in that Demoiselle. I'm like, he's thinking Oaks. She's a Medaglia d'Oro out of a Tappet. No reason that she shouldn't excel on the dirt and actually be more of a dirt filly and than a grass filly. So Saturday, maybe she's the chalk, maybe she's not. Whatever, doesn't really matter. When I watch these races and go after these races, What I'll be watching for Saturday is, do I think she's good enough to win the Oaks? Because there she's going to face who? Good Cheer, Quiet Side, all these other horses that are going to get pounded, and she's going to be a little overlooked at a nice price. And I think she might be every bit as good as them at a true mile and an eighth with a legitimate pace. So let's put Ballerina de Oro on the list of horses to watch going forward and see how she comes out of the race. And we can call that a little Kentucky Oaks radar, because I think she's going to make her presence felt in that race if she gets there and gets the right setup. But we'll move right on to the matters at hand. Uh, it's interesting because we saw the Arkansas Derby. I've got my own take on that. Some of you will agree, some of you will disagree. That's what makes a horse race. That's fine. Uh, I've got my own take on the Florida Derby, but most of you have been watching. Now he's the favorite. Everybody loves journalism. We've been on him since October as the top Derby prospect. Now he's kind of cemented himself into that role unless something fluky happens. And we'll talk more about what he does or does not have to do come Saturday in the Santa Anita Derby, where he goes from the rail. But overall, even though he didn't race last Saturday, he actually solidified himself in my book a little bit more and moved up a peg or two without even hitting on a racetrack. And I'll tell you how. Uh, I was pretty confident on Saturday that I did not see a horse that's going to beat him at a mile and a quarter on the first Saturday in May. So we saw the Florida Derby, we saw the Arkansas Derby. Horses are going to come out of both of those races and point for the run for the roses. And I don't think any of them are going to be, barring anything unforeseen, uh, enough to handle him, and that includes the winner of both races. Most of you know he was the Sure Bet Coffee Player of the Day. He was on tracking trips. He was on Amwager. I liked Tappan Street a lot. I thought he would get the perfect trip. I thought he would get the jump on Mott's horse, and the race unfolded exactly like I saw it. The Arkansas Derby didn't. Uh, Cornucopian got cooked by Speed King, and Sandman capitalized off the jockey switch to Jose Ortiz, and just had an unbelievable setup over a track he likes with a lot of bottom to him. But here's what I'll say: when you get a setup like that, okay, kind of like the setup that Mott's horse got in the Fountain of Youth, which made him a bet against, in my opinion, in the Florida Derby, although set up for different circumstances. There, looked like he ran monstrous because mile and the 16th short stretch at Gulfstream. But that run up was so long, that was probably a mile and an eighth race and not really a short stretch race. So, I downgraded and maybe say, we could beat him next time because of that. In the Arkansas Derby, that horse had an unbelievable setup. While Cornucopian, second start out of the box, everybody wants to dismiss him. Oh, he doesn't belong. Oh, he got cooked. Oh, he quit. He ran hard. It looked to me like Rafael Bejarano on Ron Moquette's horse was hometowning him a little bit and making sure one of the Arkansas horses got the money, because it didn't look to me. I mean, Johnny should know better, but he probably had no choice with that horse coming out of the sprint. But it looked to me like Bejarano was riding to cook Bob's horse and Johnny's horse, Cornucopian, as opposed to riding to win. He had to know that he had no shot and gave his horse no shot to win from that from that situation. Just as Johnny probably knew that he was in trouble the way the race was unfolding, but with a horse with one start, and one shot to make the Derby, he really had no choice but to go. He was committed to go. He went, and of the two of them, I think he finished and hung in tougher and better, even though the other horse was a little bit more, Moquette's horse was a little bit more seasoned. I don't think he quit and stopped to the point where I'm going to write him off and say he just ain't got nothing. I think he'll get a lot out of that race. He may need some time to recover, but he could be very dangerous in the Preakness, or if not the Preakness, another spot going forward, where he's had, some time to learn the game a little bit, get a little bit more seasoned. So my takeaways are, I'm downgrading the winner of the Arkansas Derby a little bit because he just got a perfect setup. Can that happen again on the first Saturday in May? Sure, it can. Is it likely? Probably not. Uh, Cornucopian, I think, is going to move forward if he continues to progress, and he didn't get hurt or nothing like that in a hard race like that. I think that he can be very dangerous going forward, and you can dismiss him from some future races and write him off possibly at your own peril. Now, to me, I will say this, and I've been saying it all along. Journalism just has that look. He's had that look to me, and he doesn't look like a Ferrari or a Maserati or a Porsche to me. He's not that kind of, blazing, cruising speed, carry it, make that, move, even though he's got a monstrous move. But I don't know if you've driven one ever or recently, but uh, they're pretty fast when you gun them. I've driven them, and I can tell you for sure they're big, heavy boats of vehicles. But to me, uh, journalism is more like this. That's what I see. That horse is a Rolls Royce. Uh, He kind of reminds me not only of his sire Curlin, but he's got kind of a Barbaro look to him. Just a beautiful striding out, uh, gorgeous animal that should love the mile and a quarter, should love the mile and a quarter again at Belmont. If it was a mile and a half at the actual true Belmont, I mean in the Belmont at Saratoga, but if it was a mile and a half at the actual Belmont, handful, man. It's unfortunate for him, maybe, that this race comes up this year at Saratoga at a mile and a quarter, because I think at a mile and a half, uh, again, he'd have those two races stamped all over him. And I won't be surprised if he goes from the Derby to the Belmont and not in the Preakness, even if he wins the Derby, unless he wins by like 10 or something like that. But that will not surprise me uh, because I think, they're probably, looking at the big picture. Now, the other thing that moved him up a little bit is Coolmore already bought the stallion rights to the horse before the Derby. Uh, they're known for making some pretty sharp moves. No, not all great moves. They've jumped on some horses that I never would have jumped on. Maximum Security, I never quite understood. Some other ones, but that's my opinion. I'm not a breeder and a bloodstock agent, but I know with my money what I would or would not do, and that's something I wouldn't have done. Journalism early now, uh, obviously paying a lot less than you will if he wins the Derby. Good gamble, in my opinion. Good gamble. Nobody wants to wind up on the chalk, but there's value to be made and had in all of these big races, especially the Kentucky Derby on the first Saturday in May. So with that, I'm not worried about who's what price now. I'll worry about finding and/or creating value then. So with that, we'll get to, hopefully, those takeaways are cool. If you like the show, if you like what we're doing, show some support. Hit that like button. Leave a comment. Let us know what you want to see. Shorebed Coffee had a nice giveaway of a seat at our seminar. Going to be an epic seminar this year. I can feel it. Uh, if you don't have a spot, grab one. You can get it on PastorWire.com. You can find a link to all the info in the write-up to this video. Check it out. It just may be for you. Listen, it can only help. It can hurt. It can't hurt. It can only help put you maybe in a good spot. So check it out. Like I said, going to be epic. You still got time, but it's coming quick, and we're only going to give it. We got so many seats, and that's it. And Shorebed Coffee is doing two more promotional giveaways. This one was on their ex Twitter at shorebedcoffee.com. I don't know where the next one's going to be. Wages having some promotions with tracking trips, memberships for a month. So you can check these, got a chance to check these things out for nothing and see if they are for you or if they're not. But if you like money, probably are. So that's a good thing. But That's how I see the Derby radar. Another Derby radar tidbit, and I said we'd get into it, but McAfee runs in the Wood Memorial. He was on my early horses to watch list way back when, threw in a dud, kind of fell by the wayside. He comes back in the Wood, and we'll talk about the Wood real quick. And I'll try and be quick with all the races. You know, the Wood, I thought, was the most wide open Kentucky Derby prep race I've seen so far this year. When you go down this field, there's not a lot of horses that can't win this race, or a lot of horses that would win this race that would say, oh, shit, what a shock that was. No, not a lot of them at all. I do think there's a lot of pace. I do think that I want a closer. There's a couple of horses running on Saturday that are on my Derby radar, even though it's a very short list. So that's interesting. But we'll run down the field. Rodriguez. Rodriguez, they say, runs best when he's on the lead, but he's going to have a hard time getting the lead in this race. But he's got the rail. So maybe he'll get it, and maybe he'll go and get brave. They're taking blinkers off. Big, strong, aggressive colt, a lot of talent. Bob Baffert comes from the rail. Looking to get into the Kentucky Derby, third to journalism, behind journalism and Barnes last time, after chasing Barnes a little bit. But to me, could definitely develop and be a nice horse. And I never dismiss Bob's horses because I don't like to lose and tear up the tickets, especially to him. But I'm looking for a closer in the Wood. Uh, Captain Cook, my man Rick Dutrow, back from a 10-year suspension, wins the Breeders' Cup Classic with White Barrio, who's now back with Saffie Joseph. But, Rick campaigned him beautifully, won the Breeders' Cup Classic. Now, what do we got? We got him with not one, but possibly two horses heading into the Kentucky Derby only, 2 years later? So, Captain Cook obviously goes from Norm Cassie in October to Rick in December, improved significantly with a 9-length maiden breaker in the slop, validated that in the Withers, won both races, looked like authoritatively. Is that a word? Yeah, I think so. Is he going to be a mile and a quarter horse? I've got my reservations about that. Is he a contender on Saturday? He's absolutely a contender because he looks like he's going to be sitting just off the speed if the speed develops the way that I think it will. So you got two horses already that wouldn't be a shock. Tiger 24 really put it together last time at Gulfstream. I love Gulfstream shippers coming back to New York this time of year. 20, 30 years ago, that was like a powerhouse and a half angle. Nowadays, not so much. I actually like some of the sneakier Tampa ones better, but that's just me. But this horse to me looks like he's in deep water over his head, but pace. He's got some pace. My Matole, I love Matoli. I thought he was going to be a great sire, not only for sprinters, but I thought he'd get routers too. So far, that's proven true. But this one, I don't know. He looks a cut below these to me. Sand Devil, state bred, ran well in open company. Another pace horse, good enough to win? I don't think so. But we'll see. But I don't think he's good enough to win. Hill Road, very intriguing. Okay. And this is why you should consider the Derby seminar. On our Breeders' Cup seminar last year out at Del Mar, Hill Road went off 60-1. I liked him. He ran third. Now, the race didn't materialize the way that we thought, but what we said about him was, hey, this is a live long shot. He's going to take to the dirt. He's going to be running at the end, and he can definitely get in the race. He got in it at 60-1. He was third. He moves to Chad Brown's barn, Tampa Bay Derby. He had no shot. I draw a line through it. They handed that race on a silver platter to Owen Almighty. Okay. Look at the fractions: 24-3, 48-3, 13-1. Okay. This horse is coming off the pace. Nobody came back to nobody that day. Chancellor McPatrick, I think, had no shot. He had no shot. I said, coming out of the race, I said, going into the race, the same thing I'm going to say coming out of the race. Both of those horses are going to go forward. I think Hill Road is very, very live on Saturday, and I think Chad made the right move with him and with Chance and McPatrick going into two respective spots, and it worked out. No scratches, all the speed. To me, Hill Road is a must use. Um, I always question Rosario nowadays. Used to be 10 years ago, 8 years ago, 12 years ago, one of my favorite riders to bet my money on. Now, you kind of never know what you're going to get with him. But he is a strong finisher when he's on his game. Hopefully, he's on his game, and this horse is motoring down the lane. This, I think, is a horse to watch not only on Saturday, but going forward. And if you get a race that just collapses, he's one of the ones I think is going to be running at the end. Again, we liked him at 60-1 in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. He showed up. No chance in the Tampa Bay Derby. I gotta say he's got a big shot in the Wood Memorial, the way the pace looks, at least on paper. We know it doesn't always materialize that way, but on paper, I like it. Grande, 2 for 2, ran big. But again, another one that's going to be on or right, close to the lead. Passion Rules, a closer. I'm looking for a closer, but he, to me, looks a cut below, a little slower than the rest of these. Bear Claw Necklace. Again, looks a little close, looks a little bit of a cut below, and close to the pace on a need or prompting what I think is going to be a fast pace. McAfee, I'm definitely looking for this horse to rebound. I love that Dutrow comes back in a spot like this with him off that clunker. He was on my radar. His second start at Churchill Downs, if you watch the replay of that November race going a mile at Churchill, he was buried on the rail, fought back, took dirt, uncomfortable, showed a lot of grit. I had to like him off that in the Gotham. Never really seemed to get untracked. I don't know what happened. I don't know if there's a legit excuse or not, but he's a closer. I think he can rebound, and him and Hill Ride are two horses I would want on my ticket. And they should both be fair prices. Statesman, I find very intriguing. First off, this kid coming from Tampa can ride a little bit. All right, we saw him have a hell of a meet over there. He's got this horse, Statesman, for Shug, win 2 races at Tampa. I love horses legging up at Tampa. He comes off the pace. I think he's going to be in the right spot. Shug, he lets his horses take him to the race and to the big dance, not the other way around. So if he's bringing him and running him, must think he's got a legitimate shot. So those are the 3 that I like, leaning more to Chad's horse, but I could go deep because I'm going to go narrow in some of the other races. So on a pick 4 or pick 5, that would be my strategy, to use at least 3 here. And those would be the 3: Statesman, McAfee, and Hill Road. Knowing that I could lose, and one of the speeds can get out there. I don't like this race a lot. Of the 3, the Bluegrass is probably my strongest opinion. But Omaha looks a couple low. If he wins, I probably don't. So there's that, and we'll move now to the Bluegrass. So those are the 3 I would want to be alive with, and my strategy would be narrow in other races and 3 deeps. Maybe I'll throw one of the speeds in there just so when I watch it, I don't have to be like, oh man, I ain't even got a horse that I could see right now, because that's not really the best feeling in the world to have. But again, when I look at, bet, and watch these races, I'm not like everybody else. I'm like the cobra waiting to strike at the right time. If you're looking for, every race action, every track action, every day, I'm that's just not how I bet. I don't believe you can beat the game that way. I think the game will devour you in the long run that way. And I think that the stats prove me right. And I have beat them. So I plan on continuing doing it. So that's how I do it. But I watch these races and I look at these races and I bet these races always with an eye towards the future. So if this ain't our day, maybe down the road. I may not bet Ballerina de Oro on Saturday. I may just watch her to see if she's good enough to bet in the Kentucky Oaks a couple of weeks later. So that's kind of how I do it. But you guys do you, and gals do you, because if it works for you when you're winning, you don't fix what ain't broke. They got great cards at Keeneland. This is one of my favorite meets of the year. I can actually say, and you can shoot me at me or hit me if you want. Uh, I prefer the Keeneland meet at this point in my life to Saratoga. I think it's better quality, better racing, shorter. Um, and it's just a better quality meet, better betting, better racing than Saratoga. Yeah, I said it. Took a long time for me to say it, but it is what it is. And I grew up at Saratoga, loved it, but it ain't the same anymore. It's tough to take a vintage red Ferrari and ruin it, and they did. But whatever. Bluegrass, okay. River Thames. I thought River Thames ran maybe as good as the winner in the Fountain of Youth, and that's not a popular opinion. I think he took plenty of pressure. I think he hung tough, and I think that the situation was against him because of that big run up and that not really being a short stretch race. I bet that exacted the wrong way with him over Mott's horse because I thought at the time it was going to be a short stretch and normal run up race, and they extended the run up from practically to the parking lot. So uh, I thought River Thames ran very well. Has the rail speed, and the rail at Keeneland is always dangerous. But let's look at who he's got to beat. Render Judgment. McPeak is dangerous, but looks a cut below. Burnham Square. I didn't like the Holy Bull. Everybody's loving this horse and has him on the radar. I didn't like him in the Holy Bull. I didn't like him in the Fountain of Youth, and I don't like him in the Bluegrass. I don't think he's for real. Owen Almighty, hopefully, is part of that pace uh, with the horse on the rail, River Thames, and softening it up for somebody else. East Avenue puts blinkers on. I guess they're tired of the excuses and they're going to run out of them. Loved him in the Breeders' Futurity. Loved him in the Grade 1 Breeders' Futurity for the same reason I loved Cornucopian in the Arkansas Derby. One start, sprinting, stretching out. Doesn't matter that he was lightly raced and more experienced horses behind him, because if you get the lead clear that way on a speed track, you can win. Didn't happen with Cornucopian, happened with East Avenue. Again, I downgrade those, cush kind of races. Bet against him in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. We know I used Hill Road. Didn't win with Hill Road at 60-1, but he ran third. But hey, East Avenue, who I thought was a toss and was a heavy favorite, and everybody talking about winning the Derby, didn't run well. Knew that the race in Keeneland was a phony, so didn't like him in the Risen Star. Didn't win that either. So do I like him on Saturday? No. Chance of McPatrick, I think he runs huge. I don't think he's a one-turn horse. I think he shuts it off and comes with his run at the right time. Tampa Bay Derby, off those fractions, no shot. I think he gets a different kind of race on Saturday. Keeneland is a tough track to bet a closer. But Sierra Leone won over there. Who else did Chad win? I think Good Magic win over there. He's good in the Bluegrass, and even though we're bucking that Keeneland bias and that Keeneland track, I think this horse gets the right setup, and I like Chance McPatrick to win the Bluegrass under Flavian Pratt and get back to his winning 2-year-old form ways. He flopped in the Juvenile. I forgive him for that. I don't think the Tampa Bay Derby was a flop at all. He was closer than normal. I think he'll sit back like he likes to and make a run. And hopefully the speed softens up enough and the track is honest enough and he's coming fast and hard enough to get up on Saturday. Admiral Dennis, I don't know. I thought, maybe a cup below, maybe on his best day could make some noise, but not for me. Not for me. And that'll take us right out west to Santa Anita and journalism. Okay. Uh, and I really am eager to talk to you about this race because there's, for me, in my opinion, a very, very important lesson to be learned here. For some of you already know this, and some of you are on a higher level and don't have this problem. But a lot of bettors do have this problem. And what do I say on tracking trips? I say two things all the time: your second set of eyes, and be a better better. Better, Bettor. Be a better. And one of the ways you be a better, there are many, and we talk about them a lot, is be willing to cash less tickets to win more money. Don't use everybody and their sister. Take a stand and live and die with it. Uh, Double up instead of spreading. All these things we talk about. Uh, I'm high on journalism since October. Okay. It's a Derby favorite. Now everybody's on the bandwagon, and half of them say, "Oh, I like them forever." Well, I'm on record with it. Okay, on the show. So here's the thing: I may or may not bet him on the first Saturday in May. I haven't handicapped that race yet. I don't know who's there. Okay, and even though I love him and think he moved up, even though he didn't run last week, that none of that shit means I got to bet on him on Saturday. I like him. I think he's the best of this crop. I think he's a really, really nice horse. I think he's the most likely Kentucky Derby winner. But I ain't married to him. I don't have to bet him every time he runs, and betting him is not an automatic. People are going to look and say, "Oh, John loves journalism. He's betting him on Saturday." If you think that, you don't know me even a little bit, because that's not how I bet or approach the game. And most people who know what they're doing and beat this game don't do that. Now, I may wind up betting him, but got to look at the race. And, to me, he's in there, already in the Derby. He's got the rail. If I'm Umberto Rispoli and Mike McCarthy and the owner, before the race, I sit back and I say, "Guys, what do you think?" I think we're in the Derby. We want to peak for the first Saturday in May. He ran huge off the layoff last time in the San Felipe. We don't want to gut him. We don't want to have an empty tank come, a couple of weeks down the road. We want to be, you know, as good as we could be come the first Saturday in May. We want to be absolutely top shelf, absolutely ready to go. And how do we do that? By not killing him on Saturdays, not the be all end all. He's on the rail. I would give him a nice education. I'd let him sit on the rail. I'd let him get covered up because he's going to get into some traffic and covered up in the Derby. And then I would either swing him out or try and bring him through a hole or something that's going to educate him or help him or let him get a lot out of the race and let him finish well. If he could win and he's in there, would I ride him and go for the win? Absolutely. But I would not ride it like everything was riding on it, like you're going to be riding him the first Saturday in May. So, with that in mind, you look at the race and you come up with who you come up with, but he's in an ideal spot. He's in a spot where, hey, I don't need the points to get in, where there are other horses running on Saturday or both races that they need to win or run second to have any chance to get in. You don't have that problem. So that's a great spot to be in and a great way to be able to educate and teach your horse a little bit, which is a beautiful thing to be able to do. So journalism from the rail. Honestly, I could say no knocks on this horse. If you consider what I just said a knock, and meaning that maybe he don't have to win Saturday, okay, I could live with that. But um, he's in a great spot. No knocks. I think legitimate and a half Derby contender. Uh, super nice racehorse. Or like I said, reminds me of Barbaro. I think he's a Rolls Royce. Just gorgeous. And when you step down, wham, flies like a sports car. Uh, Big monstrous sedan, flies like a sports car. But what's going to happen Saturday? You got Citizen Bull, who likes to get the lead and doesn't like to give it up. Uh, I can tell you, I don't think that Bob Baffert thought that Citizen Bull was the best of his crop uh, going into the Breeders' Cup. But I don't know what he would say today. I didn't ask him, and I'm not going to. But this horse likes to win and likes to go to the lead and likes to gut it out and not stop. Martin Garcia, 1, 2, 3, 4 for 4. The only time he lost was when Mike Smith didn't get him to the lead at Del Mar. He does look like he can get the lead, but you got, you know, Bonds, who's got a lot of speed. You got Baeza, who likes to stalk, I guess, you know. So what's going to happen? Bonds or Citizen Bull? So here's the dilemma that you got in that race. Is he going to send one and let the other one sit? Is he going to let whoever gets the lead go? I think it's one of those two because I don't think we're going to see Cornucopian and Speed King part two with two of Bob's own horses. So somebody's going to sit a trip and somebody's going to go. And I got a feeling that the horse that they're going to let sit the trip is Bonds. So I see Citizen Bull on the lead. I see Bonds laying second with Baeza. I see Westwood, who knows where, probably struggling to keep up. And I see Journalism sitting behind them all, ready to inhale them. So, with that, if that's how it plays out, Citizen Bull may just say, you know what? I don't quit. I don't stop. I'm just going to go all the way today. And he may shake loose and get away from them. So, this is the race that I'm least likely to get heavily involved in if I get involved at all on Saturday. But I think it's a very, very interesting race because, like I said, Journalism is in a unique position, doesn't have to win. Now, if he sits off those, Baffert horses and they go fast and he just inhales them early and, he wins going away on the wraps like a monster, going to knock down his price in Kentucky, not surprise me even a little bit because he just could be that good. And then we got probably one of the heaviest favorites heading into Louisville that we've had in a long time. And I don't mind saying that I pegged him out in October, but it ain't going to help me come the first Saturday in May. We're going to have to find a way to create value with him if that's who we land on come that day. And we don't know that today by a long shot. So if you put a gun to my head right now, and there's nobody around here with a gun, and if there was, my dogs would probably kill him. But Citizen Bull, wire to wire. I mean, that's not that creative, but if Bond sits off him and lets him go, maybe he just says, you know what? Bye-bye, I ain't stopping. Bonds, I'm not giving up on him making the Derby. What if he sits second, third, second, third, and turning for home with that other race under his belt, the last Journalism race where he went long and went to the lead. Now he sits a little. He doesn't have to go so hard early. What if he inhales Citizen Bull and gets the jump on Journalism and wins because Journalism ain't killing himself to go try and get him. Now he's in the Derby and he's that pricey colt that they sent to Churchill Downs for his debut. I'm not giving up on him either. So any one of those three, in my opinion, can win. Very, very, very tricky race. Of the three, the horse that I'm most looking forward to betting is Chance of McPatrick, and even that's tough because he's got to overcome that whole Keeneland thing. So for me, these are races that are hopefully going to strengthen my opinion in the uh, Kentucky Derby and the races going forward. But I could see all three of those scenarios. Now maybe we'll watch some races at Santa Anita and see how the track is playing. Maybe there'll be a scratch. If any one of Bob's two horses scratch, I would say the other one gets a tremendous pace advantage over Journalism. But he's probably not going to scratch unless something happens because you want to take that shot to get into the Derby. So Chance of McPatrick is probably going to be my most significant wager out of those three races. And the way I bet, if he wins, that's what we like to do. So it's fun. But with that, I wish I had a better opinion for you all on the Santa Anita Derby, but it's it is what it is. one of the things I don't do, and this goes towards be a better, is I don't force it. You know what I mean? If this was a pick five race for me that I'm getting involved in the sequence, I'm going to have my single, and it's going to have to be a price, and it's going to have to be in another leg, because I don't know. I think I'd want all three of them in here, you know. And I'll tell you this: Baeza, he can sit. He wouldn't shock me either. And Berrios, forget about how he rides out there. Berrios is like a new rider since he went out west. That guy moved out west, and bing, light bulb went off. His hands got better, his seat got better, his whip got better, his timing got better. Everything got better out west for this guy. So, you know, I wouldn't get to him in here. He's out of Puka by McKinsey, so we know he's a half to Mage and Dornock, and dangerous. But uh, I don't think I would get to him. I think one of Bob's horses is going to get the jump and maybe get away from journalism on Saturday, or just maybe he's just that good. And if he was all out, I would say, yeah, he's that good, and he'll inhale him. They won't get away from him. But I don't know that they're going to ride him that way or play it that way. I think they may play it a little differently, which kind of levels the playing field. And you can't give Bob Baffert a freaking inch. An inch. That's like suicide in motion. You give that guy an inch, forget about it. No way, man. There's one guy that you can't give an inch or an edge to in a horse race. His name is Bob Baffert. You give that guy a little bit of an edge. If you didn't learn it with Medina Spirit, if you didn't learn it with Authentic, if you didn't learn it with 100 other horses, you give him an edge, he'll take it and he'll beat you. So, but I think journalism is in, like I said, that unique position where it ain't going to matter. So, with that, everybody, thanks for watching. Hope you got something out of this. Again, things that if we don't use this weekend, we can use going forward. Grab your spot at the seminar, hit the like button, show some love and support. We'll give it back to you tenfold. You ride with us, you never starve. We look out for who looks out for us. So with that, we will never, ever, ever let them take us alive. There's a lot of ways to handicap a horse race and a lot of ways to bet on it. But nobody that I know does it like Gio Setti and his full card, precise order handicap. Every horse in the race gets a predicted order of finish like only Gio can do, way beyond a deep dive, available exclusively on select days at Past the Wire. This is important, so you're going to want to remember it. If you're a cat and you want to become a lion, you're going to have to lose your taste for rats.
Hey, Sure Bet Coffee. Put that giddy up in your cup. That giddy up in your cup. Sure Bet Coffee.
The legend himself, Frankie Dettori. Ciao, Frankie. Tutto a posto.
Tutto a posto. Yes, that's a good start. So you haven't lost your Italian.
You're watching Past the Wire TV, presented by Am Wager.
Tracking trips at Past the Wire. There is no better time than now to join and ride with this clan. We'll be your second set of expert trained eyes. We ain't gonna buy you a fish. Sure, we'll give you some, but more importantly, we'll show you how to fish and make you a better. CAWs, sharks in the water, no problem. We'll go against anybody, and we have the track record to prove it. Big days, big pools, and select days all year long. We'll outplay them all. Looking for an ace? You're in the right place. Want to find that diamond? Be with us. Want to know more? Just ask a member or visit us at pastthewire.com and check out the tracking trips page. Nobody does it better.
And here's Tama in the final stages. The Santa Anita Derby goes to Tama. It's Tama, absolutely terrific, winning Malibu by 4 widening lengths.
Remember, the older you get, the better you get. Unless you're a banana.
It's The Wire TV, your #1 source for horse racing news and interviews, handicapping analysis, betting insights, and more. Past the Wire TV covers the biggest races at the best tracks.
Garnet and Luis Saez to win the Belmont Stakes at Saratoga. The Grey Wizard is absolutely flying. Champagne won. The Grey Wizard. Oh, it's very close. Leave it to the judge.
Like, share, and subscribe to Past the Wire TV. Nobody does it better.
Blood. That makes you related. Loyalty. That makes you family. Nobody does it better.